Good morning, everyone. We will call the Community Redevelopment Agency to order for September 13th, 2021. I would ask if there are any amendments for the minutes of August 15th, 2021.
Move approval of the minutes as submitted.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Anybody for citizens to be heard? Seeing none, item 4.1.
Amanda Thompson, CRA Director. Approve an agreement for the sale and development of the property located at 115 South Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue and the adjoining vacant lot to Equity LLC for the purposes identified in request for proposals and qualifications RFP/Q 25-21 and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. So the purpose of this item, as in the title, is the sale and development of the CRA-owned property at 115 South MLK and the adjoining vacant lot. In your May meeting, you awarded the bid to Equity LLC. We've negotiated a development deal, which is in front of you, and a purchase price. The highlights of this deal are that it will be constructed substantially similar to the attachments to the item, the concept plan that you see there with the market rate apartments, the brewery, and the co-working space. And it's not just a regular co-working space. There are components there of incubators and support and a mixing of for-profit and not-for-profit businesses. The applicant's commitment to collaboratively designing the outdoor space with a $250,000 grant from the CRA. Our primary public purpose for this site, in which the CRA trustees budgeted a while ago, was to make sure that there would be an outdoor gathering space for the neighborhood in this area. So that's what that is for. A purchase price of $650,000 due upon closing, and use of the CRA-owned parking lot at the corner of Cleveland and MLK for 10 years. That's a surface parking lot, and that's meant to be used for the ground floor commercial retail and Apex 1100, the Nolan, and this site until such a time that the shared public parking is constructed at the South Washington apartment site a little further to the south. So after 10 years, that lot would be available for redevelopment. Or perhaps earlier if we're able to get the parking built and move everyone around earlier. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ms. Thompson? Councilmember Beckman.
Yeah, I have a few. First of all, I think it's a beautiful project. It's it's attractive. I like that it's mixed use. It's perfect for this location. I have a couple of questions that I brought up in May that kind of weren't addressed. One of those is, was there the possibility of setting aside any number of these apartments for lower income folks? And then also I had asked about EV charging stations, any kind of solar sustainability features that I didn't see written up in this new iteration of the, or the agreement that we want.
Sure, I did discuss with the developer the solar and the EV charging stations, and Mr. Bruce Heisler is here. He's going to go into more detail about the sustainable building features they're looking at. That wasn't something that we put in the agreement because at this point they only have the concept site plan. So that would be something they'd have to figure out during the construction drawing and permitting process. They aren't to that level of design yet. In terms of the affordable housing, I did not discuss that with them. I guess in the review of the meeting I missed that. So I'll see if Bruce has a response to that. My immediate reaction would be probably not going to fit in.
With only 35.
Yeah, with only 35 units and unless the CRA is willing to provide more subsidy to the project, which of course, we'd have that option to do that. So what I would say, and I'll have Bruce come up in a moment to talk more details, but in terms of the CRA's role, our role in administering this agreement and tracking along, certainly, I will keep asking and pushing and clarifying those sustainable features just as we're working with the green space, right? Just as we have to come to the design on the green space.
Good morning.
Good morning.
If you could just state your name for the record.
Bruce Heisler, I'm with Equity. To your point regarding low-income housing, as Amanda said, I don't think it's going to fit in our business plan. But we are, focused on, the design, and we're currently in that process, early stages, but we're in that process. I use the term vernacular architecture and design is what we're really looking to do here, which is, which is to the elements of our environment. In terms of, three main components: building location. We're going to try to orientate this building to take into account path of sun, wind, etc. Using any of the shading with the tree canopies, and that's one of the biggest things here, is that we're looking to preserve as many of the trees on site as possible. And I'll touch on that here in a minute when I discuss the specific site issues. We're also looking at natural daylighting and designing in such a way to screen the heat gain on the building. In terms of the specific building components, we're looking at, obviously low volume fixtures, low emitting materials, and high efficiency equipment, indoor air quality issues, operable windows in the apartments, which include, not only the windows but also sliding glass doors. And to your point regarding solar panels and charging stations, we're currently investigating that to see, the feasibility of that, and how it would work, in terms of the design of the building, orientation, etc. With the site, as mentioned, the trees are a really neat feature on the site. We're going to use the southeast side of the property for like a picnic area, seating area for the folks that are working in the building. Plus, going to have like a outdoor seating, beer garden, etc. for the brewery. We're looking also at reducing the parking configuration with less parking on site and utilizing some of the off-site parking. Focusing on as much pervious area as possible, and also, where we do have parking, we're going to look at using turf blocks to help with more percolation, and then obviously, the natural landscape to allow for, further percolation.
Well, that's.
Any questions?
Yeah, those things are kind of, for me, I mean, that's kind of standard operating procedure, I think, wise building, but I think going a step further with EV infrastructure and charging stations, especially if this is market rate housing, these people most likely will be having electric vehicles. And the workers that are going to come and work there, the businesses, I think would want charging stations. Maybe if we're going to be using a CRA lot, we can partner with us to, maybe we can offset some of the cost of putting EV infrastructure over there in that shared lot. Maybe we could put carports there to shade the vehicles and have solar on top of that as well. But, I think the solar and the EV infrastructure needs to be standard operating procedure.
I think at some point the market has to take control, and if people who are going to lease out these units want those things, they're going to demand them of the landlord.
But it's cheaper to put it in as we build it, and it falls in line with our green print goals to have these things. So I think we as a body need to be pushing for this from here, not so much, only out in the business world. I mean, that's what I'm advocating for reducing carbon in our city, improving our quality of life, and answering to future residents who are going to be living there. Those are the things they're going to want.
I don't think we ought to be determining what people want from this dais. I think people will demand what they want, and then the developer and the leaser is going to make the decision, because they're not going to get tenants if they don't follow what the market desires. We don't tell Macy's what they ought to carry in their stores. The market determines that.
But we had a presentation from Mr. Haroon who told us what the future is. And I think if we want to be a competitive city and be the most attractive city for residents as well as tourists, people who come to our businesses, we need to have the amenities that they want. I mean, that's what they're gonna want.
I really don't want to get into Mr. Haroon. I thought he was the wrong person.
Oh my gosh.
He's getting paid by us to do solar. It's a conflict of interest, which you bring up pretty regularly, and that was not even disclosed to us until the presentation began.
Well, I think his credentials speak for him.
Ms. Thompson?
I do just want to say two things in terms of private redevelopment. As you know, staff, Greenprints, we're looking for how do we change our regulations and policies to require different sustainable issues. When it does come to site development, every site is unique. And as Mr. Heisler laid out, I think something, in this site, our number one environmental goal was green space preservation, these water quality features, the shade, the tree preservation. It may or may not be the right site for solar. You might not get your biggest environmental bang for the buck for solar. We will look at it. We have committed to looking at it. In terms of the EV chargers, same exact thing. And a lot of that is going to be driven by, once we get into traffic engineering, where will the curb cuts be exactly? How will the parking have to be shifted? The best environmental thing they've done on this site is that they are going with shared parking, reducing the overall parking. My job, that you have charged me with when we're redeveloping is lowering the risk of redevelopment. And what that means is that a developer is walking into a known environment as much as possible. So while I'm absolutely supportive of whatever capital improvements you want to parking sites, changing ordinances and regulations, I do think it's important that we recognize we can't tack on big requests at the last minute, or we're creating a more uncertain environment for redevelopment, which in downtown, it's already pretty difficult. So and as you're a professional, right, as we're selling and redeveloping property, I just want to let you know when we're making things more predictable and less predictable in terms of the redevelopment environment.
Councilmember Albrecht.
I don't have a question, but a comment. We've been hoping to have something developed on this site for a while and had a couple of disappointments. I love this site. You got everything on here. The brewery, which I thought was important, and then with offices and the residential apartments. This would be a great bookend for downtown. I think it'll really spark some interest in that part of the town, so I like it.
Do you have other questions or comments?
I don't have a question. I do think the project is fantastic and look forward to seeing it achieved. And I agree with Kathleen, though, that we really need to address solar and other issues as we go along. But as they indicated, they'll be discussing that in the future plans. And I'm not sure that we can dictate that right now.
If construction does not commence by September 1st of 22, what happens?
The agreement expires.
It does. All right. Other questions or comments?
This is good.
Councilmember Beckman?
So while we don't have an ordinance for EV infrastructure or stations or things like that, this is property that we own, and so we can say what goes on this property, right? We can make, we could make EV infrastructure a deal breaker if we chose to, right?
Yes, and the developer could say, I'm not interested in that, and walk away.
Correct. Yeah.
At some point, if I can interject, it becomes, a cost prohibitive, venture if you start tacking on things. And as Frank said, the market's going to dictate what we need to do. So, we're sensitive, and as part of our design, we're looking at charging stations, solar, and other things to be environmentally friendly. Our goal is to try to have a project that hits it out of the park and be environmentally friendly along the way.
Have a motion?
I move to approve agenda item 4.1.
Second.
Anyone from the public to speak to this item? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 4.2.
Approve the fiscal year 2021-2022 Community Redevelopment Agency preliminary budget, adopt CRA Resolution 21-02, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute the same. What you have before you is your annual budget that would take effect October 1st of this year. CRA programs are focused on creating a positive narrative for downtown, to increase investor confidence, and to implement placemaking. This is all designed to change the perception of downtown to increase private investment in downtown. So what you have before you is our total tax increment revenue this year, which comes from the city and the county and the DDB, is $5,149,633, an increase of a little bit over $300,000. And the last 2 years, you saw bigger jumps, almost $1 million in the total budget increase due to the Nolan coming online, Apex 1100, and of course, a lot of property purchases in the downtown area. So now that those big projects have come online and major purchases have ceased, you're seeing a little bit smaller increase in revenue. When it comes to expenditures, we have operating expenditures, which is our, I think, day-to-day operating expenses, and we have project funds. Operating expenditures, we're looking at adding an assistant director position. So you will see in one of the top line items there, $115,000, and that provides for a range in salary and benefits for that potential position. We also sometimes use temporary employment and part-time employment, which we probably will in the case at some point for the Clyde Butcher exhibit that will be opening in November. So that would take care of that as well. Just so you know, for operating, we only end up being charged for what the city actually uses. So there is some return at the end of the year, depending on what's happened. For transfers out, these are money that go to our various project funds and that roll over from year to year. And we are looking at, for the county, $335,000 to economic development, $1.6 million to housing, $223,000 approximately to transportation. And then for the city TIF revenue, $500,000 to community engagement, $500,000 to economic development, and just under $500,000, $476,000 to housing. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Thompson?
Well, she pretty much answered it, mine.
We also had one-on-ones, which I appreciate, getting an overview of everything.
Good budget.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 4.2.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 4.3.
Approven,
For 4.2, we have a resolution.
Oh, adopt resolution.
Resolution number 21-02, a resolution of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Clearwater, Florida, adopting the CRA FY 2021-2022 annual operating budget, providing an effective date.
The motion for the resolution.
I move we adopt CRA Resolution 21-02.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Now 4.3.
getting my steps in today. Approve an interlocal agreement between the City of Clearwater and the Community Redevelopment Agency to provide staffing and administrative services for the CRA, provide for the reimbursement of certain expenses by the CRA to the city, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute the same. So this is the agreement that allows the CRA to be staffed by city employees and governs what we do and how we pay the city back for all of its services.
Any questions? I would ask for public comment, but there are no public.
Move approval of agenda item 4.3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 4.4.
Amend the operating budget for the Community Redevelopment Agency for fiscal year 2020-2021, approve budget amendments to the CRA capital improvement projects, and adopt CRA Resolution 21-01. And what you see below in the staff report listed out is what we have actually spent by the end of September 30th. So this amended budget allows that additional funds that were unspent to roll over into project funds.
Any questions for Ms. Thompson? Have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 4.4.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? ayes or opposed? Okay. Passes 1-0. Resolution, Ms. Aiken?
Resolution number 21-01, a resolution of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Clearwater, Florida, adopting the CRA FY 2020/21 amendments to annual operating budget, providing an effective date.
Have a motion?
Motion to adopt CRA Resolution 21-01.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Any directors' reports?
I do have a little bit of a long director's report, not too long, but all good news. So update on some programs, Story Walk, which happened over the summer, partnership with our downtown business in the library, had over 60 participants that we tracked. We know there were more. And there were 2 segments on the WFLA Channel 8 News. So that was really a nice partnership between different departments and downtown businesses. The Clyde Butcher exhibit, we're aiming for an opening date of November. It will use, remember, this is the black and white photography, the Everglades exhibit, and hopefully we'll get a gallery location established here. But they will be taking over the atrium area as well as the existing gallery. Market Marie continues, and they have high attendance, high visibility, lots of great local vendors at the corner of Court and Chestnut. And then we will have a Hispanic farmers market that will be starting soon. All of our events for the district, CRA, and other partners are at downtownclearwater.com. There is a shared calendar at downtownclearwater.com. So if you want to know what is happening in downtown, downtownclearwater.com, and it's all there. New businesses, and thank you to Howard for pulling this together. We have a list. It's so long I couldn't just write a note. So businesses that are open, a new Pilates Studio on the 600 block of Cleveland. Cleveland Street Studios is a facility open to anyone to create professional videos, photography, product photos, business videos, music videos, or radio podcast. Also on the 600 block of Cleveland. Happy Bubbles Laundromat on South Missouri across from the Papa John's, and they've completely redone that facade. Race Athletics is a new gym on the 900 block of Cleveland Street, and DeLuca's Restaurant and Bar is where the old Dolce used to be, that is open. New businesses that are coming, KL Market, which is an expansion of Carolyn's Kitchen. She will have paleo, gluten-free, keto, and plant-based food and desserts. Hopefully some things with sugar too. But that will be a good bakery. Her stuff is delicious. The Scrummy Sweets Co. Candy Shop is coming in the 600 block of Cleveland. A Jamaican restaurant, Caribbean food, in the 600 block of Cleveland. Green Culture, a modern-inspired plant-based menu featuring juice, smoothies, sweet bowls, harvest bowls, baked goods, and organic Java on the 400 block of Cleveland. Hatchet Hangout. We're a little bit late to this trend, but we're finally getting our own axe-throwing place at 709 Myrtle. And if you haven't done it, it is super fun.
Life will now be complete.
Kind of. You have to try it, especially after a public meeting, I'd say. It's a nice thing to do. And then, of course, the JB Executive Center has been renovated as well. So that's really exciting to see those changes. Wanted to update you on the Downtown Coordination Committee work. I know that our ex officio members attend DDB meetings, so they get a little more insight. The election is going on now for the Downtown Development Board, and ballots are due October 13th. If you are eligible to vote, you have been mailed a ballot. Ballots went out on Friday, so check your mail, or whoever checks your mail, so you can see your ballot and you can vote in that election. The Downtown Development Board has been funding many special events. They are still looking for more funding applications. So if you have an event idea in downtown, please contact Howard Smith with the CRA. The morning of October 7th, we'll gather at Collaborative Labs 2 representatives from the Downtown Development Board, Amplify Clearwater, the Downtown Clearwater Merchants Association, and the Downtown Partnership to talk about how they can work together to further the revitalization of downtown. We're probably going to be focusing that conversation around special events, marketing, and staffing. And we're going to continue to try and understand how the CRA can play a role in building this kind of business and social infrastructure. I was going through some old records and I found a fall-winter Cleveland Street District events from 2009. And ironically, it almost reads exactly as to what is happening right now. There's a cleanup day, there's a Hispanic Heritage Festival, right? There's sip and strolls, there was the Iron Man, there's live music, there's Winter Wonderland, there's the Superboat. And this really struck me, right? Because this was 2009, and it's, how was this going on then, right? And then things drop off and now they're starting to build up again. And how do we really keep this level of activity and engagement sustainable? And that's a question that I'm committed to finding an answer to in the next year. That we don't want to see this and then it drop off again and then it come back and then it drop off. We really want to figure out how we can keep this working and going. And we know that it takes a lot of people to do that. It takes a lot of volunteers, a lot of sweat equity, and it takes funding as well. So we're going to keep working on answering that question. Last thing, we've had some questions about residential programs and the advisory board, just so people understand that 2022 is year of residential programs, so thinking of codes enforcement, blight reduction for our single family and residential properties. It is in our strategic plan. We are working towards it. We will allocate funding towards it, and those programs will be coming in 2022. We are unlike other CRAs in that we don't have a citizen or resident staffed advisory board. One of those reasons is we staff the Downtown Development Board, which is property owners in the DDB who advise the CRA. The other reason right now is we've been focused on getting property redeveloped, on big capital improvements underway. Now that they are, we can start to look at some of those efforts. I will say that what I've seen over my career is just having a reoccurring monthly meeting isn't always the most effective use of everyone's time versus gathering resident input around specific decisions or specific projects. So we want to make sure that we're respecting everyone's time and actually giving them a voice and influence on things that matter, not just showing up in a room. So when we're thinking about resident input, that's what I'm thinking about, is how to make it as meaningful as possible. So with that, next month will be all about land acquisition and housing. We have a couple different ideas that are percolating, projects that we want to bring before you for discussion. So we'll be focused on that in October, and then in the following months we're going to report back on what we've achieved against our performance measures in each of our 3 focus areas. So that is my update. Please go to downtownclearwater.com and enjoy downtown.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. I appreciate you addressing that email about the advisory boards. Anyone have any questions? Councilmember Beckman?
Can you share that list of businesses that are coming that you read off? Thank you. That needs to be celebrated, and thank you.
Anything else? Well, we will adjourn the CRA. I don't know that we have staff for, we'll take a recess.